kindness and respect. He proved that true strength does not lie in showing off wealth but in using one's power to protect and uplift others. A magnificent supercar showroom in the city's heart. Two young boys stepped inside with eyes full of desire. But in just a blink, contempt and discrimination appeared on the faces of the staff. They did not know that the arrival of the father would change everything. The early morning sunlight gently streamed through the transparent glass walls of the Highland Prestige Motors showroom, casting shimmering reflections on the polished marble floors. The spacious area, adorned with luxurious interior details and the scent of expensive leather, evoked a sense of grandeur and power. Customers walked gracefully, their shiny leather shoes tapping lightly on the marble, reflecting the image of a glamorous, upper-class world. At the center of the showroom, a Valyrian GT hypercar stood silently, gleaming under the crystal chandelier. Its deep metallic blue color shone like a precious gemstone, with smooth, flawless curves sculpted as if by the hands of a master artisan. The car was displayed on a raised glass platform, separated from the other models, serving as a silent testament to its class. No one noticed the two teenage boys who had just entered the showroom. They quietly pushed open the glass door, their worn-out sneakers barely making a sound on the marble floor, leaving tiny footprints amidst the grandeur. Darius Wong, 17 years old, tall and slender with bright, determined eyes, gently held the door for his younger brother, Ethan Wong, 15, to walk in. Ethan hesitated slightly, his eyes excitedly sparkling as the glass door slid open smoothly. Both wore simple t-shirts, faded jeans, and old sneakers, no watches, no expensive accessories, just pure curiosity and dreams shimmering in their eyes. The moment they stepped inside, a few glances flickered, not welcoming glances, but judgmental ones that swept over their simple attire. But that did not stop Darius and Ethan's eyes from glued to the Valyrian GT. It was like a living dream that they never thought they could get close to. Darius gently pointed towards the car, his voice barely a whisper, as if a louder sound might shatter the dream. "That's it," he said, his voice full of longing. "The car I told you about." Ethan nodded, his eyes wide with amazement. The two brothers walked closer, not touching it but standing to admire it, as if they were gazing at a masterpiece, not just a car but a symbol of success and power. That moment was broken by a deep, sharp voice behind them. "May I help you, gentlemen?" Darius and Ethan turned around. In front of them stood a man in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, his sharp eyes behind rimless glasses, exuding an air of scrutiny. His name was Richard Grant, the sales director of Highland Prestige Motors. He had worked there for nearly 10 years and was known for his precision and uncompromising nature. "We just wanted to look at this model," Darius responded calmly, his eyes not leaving the Valyrian GT. "Is it true that it can go from 0 to 100 km per hour in 2.9 seconds? Richard smirked, his gaze moving from Darius's face to his worn-out sneakers, then sliding over Ethan's faded jeans. He chuckled slightly, barely hiding his disdain. "Do you know the price of this car?" Richard asked, his words slow and deliberate as if he feared these two teenagers would not understand. "It starts at 3.5 million United States dollars. The way he emphasized each word made Ethan's face turn slightly red. But Darius remained unfazed, his eyes steady on Richard. "We just wanted to take a look. We won't waste your time." Richard scoffed, shaking his head. "This isn't a museum. These cars are for real buyers, not for sightseeing." The atmosphere grew tense. A few customers glanced at the two brothers, and some muffled chuckles could be heard. Darius gently squeezed Ethan's hand, nodding slightly as if apologizing for dragging him into such an uncomfortable situation. "Sorry to bother you," Darius said, calm but resolute, then gently turned to leave. Ethan followed quietly, his eyes lingering on the Valyrian GT one last time. The glass door closed behind them, leaving the sparkling crystal chandeliers in their wake. But their story, and the contempt of Richard Grant, was just beginning. The cold morning breeze slipped through the trees on both sides of the road, leaves rustling softly as they fell onto the sidewalk. Darius and Ethan pedaled slowly down the empty street, neither saying a word. The sound of their bicycle wheels rolling along the pavement was only interrupted by distant car horns and the occasional chirping of birds in the tall branches above. Ethan's face still held a hint of sadness, his eyes occasionally glancing down at his old shoes with scuffed heels. "Brother, were we wrong?" Ethan asked softly. Darius turned his head to look at his younger brother, frowning slightly. "Wrong about what? I don't know, it's just they looked at us like we didn't belong there." Darius thought for a moment, his legs still pedaling rhythmically. He understood that feeling, the judgment, the condescending stares when someone believed you didn't belong somewhere just because of your appearance. But he did not want Ethan to feel that way. "No, we weren't wrong," Darius affirmed, his eyes resolute. "It's just sometimes people forget that value isn't defined by what you wear or drive. Remember that, okay?" Ethan nodded, a faint smile flickering across his face. The two brothers continued pedaling towards the city center. When they reached an intersection, Darius suddenly grabbed Ethan's hand and pointed to a modest cafe at the corner. The sign read, "Espresso Haven, where everyone is welcome. Let's get something warm to drink." "My treat." Darius smiled, trying to lighten the mood. The two brothers parked their bikes in the corner of the cafe. A small bell chimed as they pushed open the door. The space inside was warm, with soft yellow lights and the gentle aroma of coffee lingering in the air, soothing away the discomfort left from the luxury car showroom. They sat at a wooden table near the window, watching the crowd outside. While waiting for their drinks, the cafe door opened again. This time, a woman stepped in. She wore an elegant beige coat, her brown hair neatly curled, and her bright eyes radiated intelligence. She approached the counter, ordered a cappuccino, and sat at a nearby table. Darius recognized her but couldn't remember her name. She was the woman who smiled at them the other day at the showroom when Richard Grant showed them disdain and drove them away. The woman noticed Darius and Ethan, her eyes showing a flicker of surprise before she smiled warmly. She stood up, picked up her coffee, and approached their table. "Hello, boys," she greeted warmly. "May I sit with you?" Darius was a bit surprised but then politely nodded. The woman placed her cup on the table and pulled out a chair to sit across from the two brothers. "I'm Clara Williams, the customer relations manager at Highland Prestige Motors." She introduced herself, her smile still gentle. Ethan's eyes grew wide with surprise, while Darius leaned slightly forward, listening intently. "I saw you both yesterday? You were really polite and passionate about cars." Clara continued, "I'm very sorry about what happened. Not everyone at the showroom behaves that way." Darius smiled, sensing the sincerity in Clara's eyes. "Thank you. We just wanted to take a closer look at that car." Clara nodded, her gaze sharpening. "And you have the right to do so. At Highland, everyone has the right to admire the beauty of those cars, whether they intend to buy or not." She paused, took a sip of her coffee, and continued, "Tomorrow, if you're free, I'd like to invite you back. I'll personally give you a tour. How does that sound?" Darius and Ethan looked at each other, their eyes reflecting surprise and joy. "Really?" Ethan asked, his voice full of hope. "Really?" Clara smiled, placing a business card on the table. "Meet me at the showroom at 9 a.m. Just mention my name, and you'll be let in." The two brothers held the business card tightly, their faces lighting up with smiles. Clara stood up, picked up her coffee, nodded gently to say goodbye, and stepped out of the cafe. The door closed behind her, leaving the soft ringing of the bell in the air. Darius watched Clara's figure disappear among the traffic, his eyes gleaming with determination. He knew that tomorrow would not just be an ordinary visit. It would be the beginning of something much bigger. The next morning, the early sunlight stretched across the gleaming glass buildings of the city center. The air was crisp and fresh, bringing a sense of comfort. Darius and Ethan stood in front of the large glass doors of Highland Prestige Motors, where luxury cars glistened under natural light. Their eyes shone with eagerness mixed with a hint of nervousness. They looked at the ivory-colored business card with elegant writing, "Clara Williams, Customer Relations Manager." "Do you think she'll come?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with worry. Darius smiled, gently patting his brother's shoulder. "Trust me, she's not the kind of person who makes empty promises." Just then, the rhythmic click of high heels broke the morning stillness. Clara Williams approached elegantly in a beige coat and polished black heels. Her face lit up with a warm smile when she saw the two brothers. "You came earlier than I expected," she said, eyes full of kindness. Darius smiled back. "We didn't want to miss this opportunity." Clara nodded, gesturing for the two to follow her inside the showroom. The glass doors opened, revealing the luxurious interior filled with rows of high-end supercars, their glossy paint shining under the lights, creating a flawless reflection. "Follow me, I'll show you everything," Clara said, her tone professional but friendly. They walked past Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and finally stopped before an Aston Martin Valkyrie, a supercar worth over $3 million. Ethan's eyes widened in awe, while Darius released a soft gasp of admiration. "Would you like to sit inside?" Clara smiled, her hand lightly touching the car door. "Really?" Ethan stammered, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Of course," Clara confirmed, then gently opened the door. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat, his hands trembling slightly as he touched the leather steering wheel, his eyes glowing with happiness. Darius sat in the passenger seat, feeling the luxury of every tiny detail. The interior exuded perfection, every stitch and every button reflecting elegance and class. "Aren't you afraid we might damage it?" Darius asked, his eyes fixed on the gleaming dashboard. Clara laughed, shaking her head. "Your passion and respect for cars, I can feel it. I trust you." When the two brothers stepped out of the car, Clara looked at them with eyes full of trust. "Like I said, Highland is a place where everyone is welcome. No one has the right to judge you just because of appearances." Darius nodded, his eyes sparkling with gratitude. "Thank you, Clara. You're the first person here who treated us like that." Clara gently touched Darius's shoulder, her voice soft but resolute. "Respect isn't something to be given on a whim. It has to come from sincerity. And I see that in both of you." Their conversation was suddenly interrupted when the showroom door swung open, and Richard Grant, the sales manager of Highland Prestige Motors, stepped inside. His gaze swept over Darius and Ethan, his eyes sharp with surprise and disdain. "Clara, I didn't think today was a visitor's tour day," Richard said, his half-smile barely concealing his contempt. Clara turned around, her gaze becoming stern. "Our company always welcomes all customers, regardless of why they are here." Richard chuckled slightly, his eyes scanning the two brothers. "Sure, as long as they can afford it." Darius clenched his fists, but Clara quickly placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Her eyes were resolute as she looked straight at Richard. "Affordability is not only measured by the wallet, Mr. Richard." The room fell silent, tension spreading. Clara stood firm, protecting the two brothers from the manager's judgment. Darius could feel the warmth and kindness from this woman, something he had never experienced before at Highland Prestige Motors. "Shall we continue?" Clara asked gently, leading the two brothers deeper into the showroom. Richard stood behind, stunned and speechless. Inside Darius, a fire began to ignite, a fire of pride and determination. He knew that this was only the beginning of something big. The next morning, the soft morning sunlight filtered through the large glass panels of Highland Prestige Motors, illuminating the luxury cars that gleamed under the pristine light. The silence of the morning was broken as two Aston Martin Valkyries, one black and one silver, slowly rolled into the parking lot in front of the showroom. The car doors opened gracefully, and the two boys, Darius and Ethan, stepped out more confidently than ever before. Inside the showroom, sales staff and customers stared through the glass in astonishment, curious eyes fixated on the two boys. Surprise mingled with slight confusion. Clara Williams, who had helped Darius and Ethan the previous day, stood behind the reception desk, unable to hide her surprise. "Darius? Ethan? What is going on?" she asked, her voice filled with amazement. Darius smiled confidently and walked towards her. "I just wanted to thank you for the kindness you showed us yesterday," he said sincerely. Clara returned the smile. "I only did what I was supposed to do." "But, did you drive that car here?" Before Clara could ask more, the showroom doors swung open again. This time, it was a middle-aged man, dressed impeccably in a black tailored suit, his steps exuding confidence and authority. His presence immediately heightened the atmosphere inside the showroom. The man was Alexander Reeves, the founder of Reeves Group and the owner of Highland Prestige Motors. The moment he stepped inside, the space became noticeably more dignified. The staff straightened up, bowing their heads respectfully. Richard Grant, the sales manager, turned pale when he recognized who had just walked in. You're their father," Richard stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Alexander nodded slightly. his sharp eyes locking onto Richard. "Yes, and I am here today to clear up a few things," he said, his voice calm yet carrying an undeniable authority. Richard bowed his head, his gaze faltering. "Mr. Reeves, I didn't know." Alexander didn't let him finish, cutting him off sharply. "Exactly, because you didn't know. That's why I am here today. At Highland, we respect all customers, regardless of status or appearance." The entire showroom fell silent. All eyes were now on Richard, who stood frozen, his face flushed with embarrassment. Clara stood nearby, her eyes reflecting satisfaction as she witnessed justice being served. Alexander turned to Clara, his gaze softening. "Thank you for doing your job right," he said. Clara nodded gently. "That's my responsibility, Mr. Reeves." Alexander turned back to Richard, his gaze turning cold again. "I think you need time to reconsider how you treat our customers." Richard said nothing, only bowing his head in silence. The atmosphere grew heavy, but justice had been restored in the right place this time. Darius and Ethan stood beside their father, their eyes glowing with pride. Clara smiled warmly, realizing that sometimes, small acts of kindness are enough to change an entire system. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Highland Prestige Motors' large glass windows, reflecting off the elegant luxury cars parked neatly in the lot. The fresh morning air felt crisp but tense. Every employee could sense the profound change that had taken place after the events of the previous day. Clara stepped into the showroom, feeling the curious glances of her colleagues watching her. "Congratulations." Another sales associate named Lisa walked up to her with a bright smile. "Mr. Reeves officially promoted you to sales team leader. No one deserves it more than you." Clara was momentarily surprised, but then a gentle smile appeared. "Really? I didn't expect." "Thank you, Lisa." Lisa nodded. "He saw everything you did. Not just selling cars, but the way you treated people. He said you are the kind of role model that Highland needs." Clara couldn't hide her emotions. She remembered when Darius and Ethan walked into the showroom full of hope, only to be crushed by Richard's discrimination. And then, Alexander Reeves showed up and changed everything. At that moment, Alexander and the senior management team walked into the showroom. The atmosphere instantly became more formal. He stopped before the reception desk, his gaze sweeping across the familiar faces. "Today, we begin a new journey," he started, his voice complete of authority and warmth. "I want everyone to understand that Highland doesn't just sell cars. We sell trust and respect. Every customer who walks in here, no matter who they are, what they wear, or what they drive, deserves to be treated with absolute fairness and respect." Alexander then approached Clara, placing his hand on her shoulder. Clara is proof of that. She saw value in customers that others overlooked. That's why she is being promoted to sales team leader today. The showroom erupted in applause. Clara bowed her head, her eyes glistening with emotion. She never thought her small gesture could bring such a vast change. "And what about Richard?" a staff member whispered from behind, his voice low but loud enough for everyone to hear. The room fell silent. Alexander glanced around, his eyes firm. "Richard has been transferred to another department. I believe he needs time to reflect and improve himself." The change was not just a personnel adjustment. It was how Highland Prestige Motors began to view the actual value of every individual. Alexander Reeves decided to restructure the customer service policies and implement regular training programs for employees to understand fairness and professionalism. Clara began her first day in her new role with confidence and strength. She was not just a sales associate anymore, she was now an inspiration for her team. Every time a customer walked into the showroom, she greeted them with a warm smile, her eyes filled with sincerity and respect. After that event, Darius and Ethan frequently visited the showroom, often accompanied by their father. Every time they arrived, the staff greeted them with friendly nods. The judgment and skepticism that once shadowed their visits had disappeared, replaced by warm welcomes. Highland Prestige Motors was no longer just a place to sell luxury cars. It had become a beacon of trust and fairness. Clara was a living example of that change. And Alexander Reeves firmly established that a person's value is not defined by the clothes they wear, but by how they treat others. At the end of each workday, Clara would step out of the showroom, gazing up at the glass-covered building glimmering under the evening sun. She would smile, knowing that she had contributed to a greater change that brought fairness and compassion to the very place she worked. And she knew that it was only the beginning. After the dramatic events at Highland Prestige Motors, Alexander Reeves implemented significant changes. The next morning, an emergency meeting was called with the entire management team and sales staff. The large meeting room, usually bustling with conversation, now fell silent with anticipation. All eyes were on the founder, waiting for him to speak. Alexander entered the room with a calm demeanor but exuded determination. His eyes scanned every face, pausing at the senior managers. And he began with a deep and resolute voice. Highland Prestige Motors does not just sell luxury cars. We represent elegance, and we respect every customer, regardless of who they are or where they come from. The room grew heavy with silence. Nobody dared even to breathe too loudly. Alexander continued. What happened yesterday was not just an individual mistake. It was a wake-up call that we need to change. I don't want anyone stepping into Highland Prestige Motors and feeling judged or unwelcome. He turned to Clara, the woman who had shown kindness and professionalism to his sons. Clara, Alexander called her name confidently. From today, you will take on the role of sales team leader. I trust you to lead this team with the values that Highland represents. The room was stunned into silence, then erupted in applause. Clara couldn't hide her emotions. Her eyes sparkled as she replied. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I won't let you down. Alexander nodded with satisfaction and continued to lay out his restructuring plan. A series of powerful initiatives were announced. The objectives were unmistakably clear. Highland Prestige Motors would become a symbol of fairness and world-class customer service. Not long after, the Highland Prestige Motors changes took effect. Customers who walked into the showroom were greeted with warm smiles, polite gestures, and genuine hospitality. Questions were answered thoroughly, and the judgmental glances from before were gone. There were no longer any assumptions about someone's ability to afford a car based on appearance. Clara, in her new role, proved that Alexander's decision was right. She led her team professionally and showed humanity and respect to every customer who walked through the doors. The showroom's revenue increased significantly, and customers began recommending Highland Prestige Motors to their friends because of the professionalism and dedication they experienced. During his visits, Alexander could feel the positive change. He knew that what he had done was more than reforming a showroom. It was affirming the values of respect and equality. Highland Prestige Motors was no longer just a place to buy luxury cars but where every customer felt welcomed and valued. 1 week after the remarkable event at Highland Prestige Motors, a photo of Alexander Reeves and his 2 sons stepping into the showroom in their luxury cars spread across social media platforms. It was not for show, but rather, it demonstrated how he stood up for his family's dignity and rights while also setting a new standard for respect and fairness in business. Highland Prestige Motors quickly became the center of attention. Customers came not only to buy cars but also to experience the service Alexander had promised. No discrimination or judgment based on appearance. In her new role, Clara ensured that every customer who stepped into the showroom was greeted with professionalism and courtesy. The judgmental stares from before had disappeared, replaced by friendly smiles and a willingness to serve. Alexander did not stop there. He expanded the training programs to all branches of Highland Prestige Motors. Weekly workshops were held to teach equality values, customer service skills, and awareness of hidden biases. He attended these workshops not to oversee, but to listen, share, and motivate his team. One of Alexander's groundbreaking initiatives was partnering with community organizations to create job opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. He wanted to expand Highland Prestige Motors' doors not just to sell cars but also to help those with aspirations to rise above their circumstances. This program was warmly received, not only by the community but also by the staff themselves, who felt the meaningful impact of their work. Alexander also did not forget to send special thanks to Clara. He not only recognized her dedication and kindness in that special situation, but he also realized that people like Clara built the actual values of Highland Prestige Motors. A small recognition ceremony was held right at the showroom, where Clara was awarded the title of Employee of the Year, along with a remarkable promotion in her career. She shed tears of emotion as she received the plaque from Alexander's hands. Amid cheers and applause from her colleagues, Not only did the internal structure change, but Highland Prestige Motors also began to receive positive feedback from customers. Praise for professionalism, dedication, and fairness spread across forums, social media, and online reviews. The showroom's image was no longer a symbol of cold luxury but a place where customers were genuinely valued, regardless of their background or appearance. One beautiful sunny afternoon, Alexander sat in his office, gazing out of the large glass window, watching the bustling crowd coming and going. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. He knew he had done the right thing. Not just because the revenue was growing, but because of the real values he had brought back to the community. He turned to his two sons, who were sitting quietly reading books in the corner of the room, pride shining in his eyes. This is how we change the world. Not with power or money, but by treating people the way they deserve to be treated. The story of Alexander Reeves did not stop at Highland Prestige Motors, it spread to many other businesses. They looked at the way he handled the situation, how he rebuilt trust from the simplest of things, kindness and respect. He proved that true strength does not lie in showing off wealth, but in using one's power to protect and uplift others. The final message of Alexander Reeves was engraved not only in the hearts of Highland's employees but also in the minds of those who witnessed that story. Success is not just about reaching the top, but how you treat others when you are standing at the top. Highland Prestige Motors quickly became the center of attention. Customers came not only to buy cars but also to experience the service that Alexander had promised. No discrimination, no judgment based on appearance. Clara, in her new role, ensured that every customer who stepped into the showroom was greeted with professionalism and courtesy. The judgmental stares from before had disappeared, replaced by friendly smiles and a willingness to serve. Alexander did not stop there. He expanded the training programs to all branches of Highland Prestige Motors. Weekly workshops were held to teach equality values, customer service skills, and awareness of hidden biases. He personally attended these workshops not to oversee, but to listen, share, and motivate his team. One of Alexander's groundbreaking initiatives was partnering with community organizations to create job opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. He wanted to expand the doors of Highland Prestige Motors, not just to sell cars but also to help those with aspirations to rise above their circumstances. This program was warmly received, not only by the community but also by the staff themselves, who felt the meaningful impact of their work. Alexander also did not forget to send special thanks to Clara. He not only recognized her dedication and kindness in that special situation, but he also realized that it was people like Clara who built the actual values of Highland Prestige Motors. A small recognition ceremony was held at the showroom, where Clara was awarded the title of Employee of the Year and a remarkable promotion in her career. She shed tears of emotion as she received the plaque from Alexander's hands, amid cheers and applause from her colleagues. Not only did the internal structure change, but Highland Prestige Motors also began receiving positive customer feedback. Praise for professionalism, dedication, and fairness spread across forums, social media, and online reviews. The showroom's image was no longer a symbol of cold luxury but a place where customers were genuinely valued, regardless of their background or appearance. One beautiful sunny afternoon, Alexander sat in his office, gazing out of the large glass window, watching the bustling crowd coming and going. A satisfied smile appeared. He knew he had done the right thing. Not just because the revenue was growing, but because of the fundamental values he had brought back to the community. He turned to his two sons, who were sitting quietly reading books in the corner of the room, pride shining in his eyes. This is how we change the world. Not with power or money, but by treating people how they deserve to be treated. The story of Alexander Reeves did not stop at Highland Prestige Motors, it spread to many other businesses. They looked at how he handled the situation, how he rebuilt trust from the simplest of things. 1 week after the remarkable event at Highland Prestige Motors, a photo of Alexander Reeves and his two sons stepping into the showroom in their luxury cars spread across social media platforms. It was not for show, but rather, it demonstrated how he stood up for his family's dignity and rights while also setting a new standard for respect and fairness in business. Highland Prestige Motors quickly became the center of attention. Customers came not only to buy cars but also to experience the service Alexander had promised. No discrimination or judgment based on appearance. In her new role, Clara ensured that every customer who stepped into the showroom was greeted with professionalism and courtesy. The judgmental stares from before had disappeared, replaced by friendly smiles and a willingness to serve. Alexander did not stop there. He expanded the training programs to all branches of Highland Prestige Motors. Weekly workshops were held to teach equality values, customer service skills, and awareness of hidden biases. He attended these workshops not to oversee, but to listen, share, and motivate his team. One of Alexander's groundbreaking initiatives was partnering with community organizations to create job opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. He wanted to expand Highland Prestige Motors' doors not just to sell cars but also to help those with aspirations to rise above their circumstances. This program was warmly received, not only by the community but also by the staff themselves, who felt the meaningful impact of their work. Alexander Reeves's final message was engraved not only in the hearts of Highland's employees but also in the minds of those who witnessed that story. Success is not just about reaching the top, but how you treat others when you are standing at the top. Highland Prestige Motors became a model for other companies to follow. Business owners looked at how Alexander turned a moment of discrimination into an opportunity for change, proving that true strength lies not in dominance but in kindness and fairness. From that day on, Highland was not just a luxury car showroom, it was a symbol of respect, equality, and hope for those who dared to dream big, regardless of their background or appearance.